Good morning. Hey, this is Steve from California Republic Stand-Up Paddleboard. My, and I'm coming to you today. I'm just so excited right now. I can barely speak. My Aloha Friday got off to a really good start today. Yesterday, Thursday, I was looking at Facebook Marketplace, and every now and then I see surfboards for sale. And you may know I'm a surfboard collector. Have been for a long time. And usually the surfboards are pretty crummy, just standard. There's nothing that unique at all. But yesterday, this board was for sale. This board was for sale. It is really, really unique, and I'm going to tell you about it. But one thing that I was really, well, I'll go ahead and tell you about the whole thing. It's a CC Rider from either from 1969, maybe 70, but probably 1969. The reason I say that, it's considered a transitional board, here, let me get down closer. So surfboards, went through a lot of different periods in the early '60s when surfing really took off in places like California and Florida, all up and down the East Coast too. Most boards are really big and really heavy. There was no color of any kind on it, unless they did this specific kind of resin work called pigmentation. So it basically put colored resin on the outside of the board and sand. It's really hard to do. I've done it. It's really, really hard. So you don't see much of those, which is good. I mean, made them heavy that weren't any good. So most boards from the 1960s are clear, and it's called clear. Really, back when they were sold, they would have been white, and then over the years, all of them have yellowed, including that one. But this is unique. If you notice on the deck, there was that big patch like this. What that is it was really the early foray into coloring the board underneath the fiberglass. And they started doing this like around 1968, 69, 70. What they would do is they would get cheesecloth and kind of tie-dye it or color it, or usually tie-dye it, and then tape off the area and lay the cheesecloth down and then just pull it off, and then put fiberglass over that. So they put the cheesecloth right on the foam once it was shaped, and then fiberglass over that. So you saw color under the glass for the first time ever in about 1968. So, but then the other thing is, in 1968, that was a transitional year for a lot of reasons. For one, his history teacher in me talking, and the surfboard collector. But up until, 1968 is usually considered the turning point in American history, at least as far as the counterculture and a lot of other things are concerned. In 1968, that was the high point of the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. It was also the high point of servicemen there. There was about 540,000. And so most young guys by 1968 had either already been drafted or were doing everything they could to not be drafted. And surfing kind of was like put on the back burner, really. And it was also 1968 when Martin Luther King was assassinated, when Robert Kennedy was assassinated. It was also the year for the Democratic National Convention in Chicago got haywire and police came in and broke up. It's also the height of the counterculture movement and drug use, hippies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of changes going on. Well, in surfing, the same thing happened. Dramatic change. The first real shortboard, at least as the story goes, there was a guy, Bob McTavish, who went out with a much, much shorter board, like 8 foot. So most boards at that point were between 9 and 10 feet. So he went out Honolulu Bay in Hawaii with an 8-foot board and blew people's minds. Like, wow, what is that? I think this was really late 1967. So usually 68 is considered the year that boards got considerably shorter. Now still long by today's standards, but considerably shorter. 69, that trend continued. By 1970 on, there's really no more longboards. No big longboards that you kind of associate with surfing until about the early 90s when they started, other builders started getting back into building longboards. So really for about, 30 years? 25 years? There's really no longboards produced. Now, I'm sure you could find a few examples here and there, but in general, not. Now, when I started surfing in California in the late 70s, there's no longboards. In fact, actually there was two. My friend and I, Don, you watching Don? Don Butkus, He had his old early 60s longboard from his neighbor. I had my uncle's early 1960s surfboard. We would go down, and when the surf was really small, we'd go out and surf on. But other than that, no one was on a longboard. So now I'm getting out of the scope of this board. So this board, it's called the CC Rider Mini Pin, and it's by the name of the company was Conn Surfboards. Conn is a California company, but I believe they also, I haven't done the research yet, but I believe they also produce them in Florida. But I know CC, and maybe you heard that term before, CC Rider. It was a song. I know the Beatles did it, Chuck Berry did it. It was maybe Creedence Clearwater Revival. But it was a well-known song, CC Rider. But the CC in this case though stands for Claude Codgin, who's a Florida surfer. And so this board was radically different from if it would have been produced a year or two earlier, dramatically. So there's a couple things I want to point out about this board. For one, before this period, you don't see many logos that are really big and colorful like that one that says CC Rider. For another thing, I was really thrilled when I saw the picture. It was in such good shape. I thought maybe it was a modern surfboard, that it was like a retro, made in the style of this old board. And when I pulled up, it's like he had it on the lawn. Oh no, that's authentic. But one thing that I couldn't quite see in the photo is the fin. So this fin, first of all, it's really tight. A lot of early 60s boards. Oh no, it's cracked. No, it's not. A lot of early 60s boards, they're not very tight. This is called the Waveset fin, and it was unique in the sense that most fins, let's say up until 1968 or 67, 66, were glassed on, fiberglassed on. This is a box that's put in the board, and then the fin can be removed. And here's another thing that makes this really unique. Right here, if you look at almost every old board I've ever seen, there's a hole drilled, because surf leashes, and this guy's got a new surf leash on it. Surf leashes were invented in 1971. In fact, a high school history teacher. So after like the early 70s, you always find a plug here, and that's where the leash attaches to. But prior to that, people would take their old boards when leashes became available and drill a hole and then surf on it, coming over the board. There's a screw here that holds the fin in, and that this guy's put this around. I'll get rid of that really quick. This is probably the weakest part of the board right here. Looks like he set it on something, or something was set on it. There's wax I got to clean off. But it's so unique. It really is unique. Here's Claude Codgin. And they called it a lightweight. Now this guy said, oh, it's so heavy. For a 60s board, this is like half the weight of most 1960 boards. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Anyway, that's a long way of saying good morning. Also, I wanted to say that this weekend and every weekend I'm not in this area in Lake Murray. No weekend rentals. The only thing that's available this summer is the 5 paddleboard camps. We just finished the first one last week. It was fabulous. Actually, yesterday was fabulous. So good. The weather was good all week. It was the biggest camp we've ever had. Ladies' night last night at Loretta's house in Irmo. Unbelievable. Oh, so beautiful. So, and I think about 18 women showed up. So it was really a special week, great week. But I'm not here on the weekends anymore. In fact, this guy lives right near South Shore Marina. I can't even think of the name. South Shore Marina, and I drove right by it and I looked over at it. So anyway, but I'm not there anymore on the weekends. No more weekend rentals. So if you want to paddle, here's what you do. Look, the ladies' nights. I have a schedule on the Facebook page, but this last week, this coming week, and the following week, they're at Loretta's place. That's in Irmo. It's a private residence, and it's really nice. You'd be surprised. And then the week after that, June 26th, it's going to be at Sheely's Landing in Valentine. And then July 10th, it's going to be at Deer Island State Park. So that's really the only opportunity, those Thursday nights. Now, if you really did get the end, you wanted to paddle midweek, you can give me a call or a text, and I'll see what I can do. Maybe I know Monday there's going to be someone paddling after camp. So my name, again, Steve from California Republic, Stand Up Paddleboards. My telephone number, 803-608-5033. And I hope to see you soon on the lake. Bye.